Greetings and welcome back to LPBW Update, the more in-depth channel that gives you the genuine news that the network would like you not see. We've all been working on the same premise for months. The world is over, little folks. The final season was season 25. Tori and Zach are permanently gone. The family is irreparably broken. And Matt Roloff will be the last to carry on the farm's legacy. The official story is that the neat, tidy tale they fed us. Let me tell you though, that was the biggest lie of all. Everything. What if I told you that TLC has planned the most dramatic, high-stakes family reunion in reality TV history? In addition to the fact that season 26 is already covertly under production. What if I told you that Zach and Tori have returned, and that their newfound authority over the property is startling? And what if I told you that Matt Roloff has been keeping a terrible secret from everyone, and that's why? A mystery that compelled him to act and permanently altered the Roloff dynasty's course. Alright, stop. I am aware of how shocking that is, and I know your mind is racing. Before we delve into the unique leaked facts of what is being internally referred to as the Roloff Summit, I need you to do something. We are going to destroy everything you believed you knew about the end of this show. Now is the time to prove yourself if you want to be the first to know every detail of this amazing tale. Hit that like button, click subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss parts 2, 3, and 4 of this. Exclusive disclosure. The YouTube algorithm is informed that this is the most important story. And you'll understand after hearing this, I promise. Okay, let's get started for those of you who are now locked in. We need to go back to the days right after Zach and Tori announced on their podcast that they were leaving the show in order to comprehend what's going on. The family remained mute in public. Matt shared generic farm photographs on social media. About cooking with Chris, Amy shared a post. Everything was planned to convey a feeling of acceptance and normalcy with the new situation. However, concern was spreading behind the scenes, not just for the family but also for the network. TLC. The network was caught off guard by the finality of Zach and Tori's choice, according to my source, an industry insider with close ties to the production company who has chosen to remain nameless and who will call the producer. The show's ratings, albeit consistent, were wholly dependent on the family drama. A performance including only Chris, Amy, Caryn, and Matt was regarded as a season-long non-starter. The company was about to go out of business. The tale takes its first turn at this point. The producer claims that a senior network executive personally called Chris Merrick rather than Matt or Amy. Chris, why? Because the network considers him to be the most impartial party. He is realistic. He's not a blood Roloff. Additionally, he gets along well with all of the family members. Chris was assigned a straightforward mission. Locate a number. Choose a situation. Locate anything that would force Tori and Zach to sit down at the table for a last discussion. For the family, not for the show. The network was aware that a program resolution was impossible without a family resolution. A string of tense, covert phone conversations resulted from this. Amy to Tori, Chris to Zach, and Chris to Amy. Decades of baggage and bitter feelings hung over every syllable of this delicate diplomatic dance. According to reports, Zach was insistent. Chris, it's not about the money. Respect is at issue. It has to do with our poisonous surroundings. Children. Tori was even more determined since she was worried about the toll it was having on her mental health. They were finished. And if it weren't for the second, more crucial incident that altered the course of the game, they would have remained finished. And up until today, this area has been completely shut down by the media. Matt Roloff experienced a serious health scare in late winter, following the conclusion of the season's production. Zach did not have this shunt problem. For Matt, this was something completely different and much more frightening. Matt, while working alone on a new project close to the woods, he had a serious fall on the farm. It took Caryn hours to find him because he was unable to get out of bed. Even though he wasn't seriously hurt, the incident prompted a string of medical visits that led to the startling discovery that his joints were deteriorating significantly more quickly than his type of dwarfism would typically indicate. He was given a timeline by the physicians. It's a timeline of his abilities rather than his life. His capacity to operate the farm, his capacity to scale the machinery, and the life he had created for himself. That time frame was little more than 5 years. After that, he would probably need a lot of help and be using a wheelchair. All of a sudden, Matt was not merely considering his legacy in a theoretical sense. He was confronted with the tangible prospect of being physically incapable of overseeing Roloff Farms. If he couldn't even walk the grounds, his ideal home turned into a possible prison. Enhanced. What really broke him was this existential crisis, this realization of his own mortality and his limitations. He came to 2 realizations. First, he had lost his family because of his obstinate pride. 2, the farm, his life's labor, would be sold to strangers and vanish the moment he could no longer handle it without one of his sons. The catalyst is this. He was concealing this secret. He dubbed what my source has called the meeting for this reason. A meeting was set up in secrecy. The venue, a private, upscale conference room at the Nines Hotel in downtown Portland, was specifically picked to be neutral terrain. No cameras were meant to be there, but we'll get to it later. The core 6, Matt and Caryn, Amy and Chris, and Zach and Tori, were present. It was noted that Audrey and Jeremy were not invited to this first meeting. Matt knew he had to heal the primary wound before he could even think about fixing the secondary one. Our source has given an incredibly thorough explanation of what took place in that room. It was oppressively tense. According to reports, Tori and Zach refused to even look at Matt directly as they sat with their arms crossed and their expressions like stone. Amy was trembling and wringing her hands, but Chris remained composed and perceptive. The insider said that Matt started, and it wasn't the usual defensive, belligerent Matt Roloff we see on television. This was a broken man. He talked non-stop for about 20 minutes. He offered no justifications. He avoided discussing business or the worth of the market. He said he was sorry. He apologized for his conceit as he turned to face Zach and Tori. He expressed regret for failing to consider his son's point of view. He replied, "Zach had been waiting to hear for years. I was wrong. The biggest mistake I have ever made in my life was to place a value on our family's legacy. I apologize as well. I sincerely apologize for the suffering I inflicted upon you, Tori, as well as my grandchildren." After that, he turned to Amy and expressed regret for his handling of the divorce and the division of the farm, acknowledging that his behavior was the first crack that allowed the confrontation with Zach to occur. There was silence in the room. Tori was reportedly crying gently. Zach was still wary, but his face had softened. His father's promises had previously scorched him. A big folder was then slid across the table by Matt. This was his sacrifice for peace, and it was bolder than anyone could have ever thought. It wasn't just an offer to sell Zach the farm. It was a total reorganization of the whole Roloff family. The folder contained a Roloff Legacy Trust proposal. These are the main ideas of the plan that I was leaked. First, the entire farm should be put into a trust. The whole 100+ acres. Everything, the wedding barns, the pumpkin patch, the north and south sides. Matt's children would not be the beneficiaries of the trust. They would be his grandchildren. Radley, Ember, Josiah, Bo, Leia, and Jackson. Each one equally. This dispelled the notion that one child was being preferred over another. The farm would be legally shielded from sale and belong to the following generation. Second, Zach will have a new role. Zach accepted Matt's offer to become Vice President of Agricultural Operations, with immediate effect and a salary. This position, which was intended to be an apprenticeship, had genuine duties. A legally enforceable 5-year plan was included in the proposal so Zach could understand every facet of the company, from financial planning to crop management. At the conclusion of the 5 years, which corresponds with, Zach would naturally take over as president and take over complete operational leadership of the farm for the trust after Matt's own health-mandated step-aside. A new home, not the old one, is the third point. Matt's offer had a startling clause in recognition of the unpleasant memories connected to the original property. The most picturesque portion of the property, a 5-acre plot of land with a view of the lake, would be given to Zach and Tori free and clear. After that, he would finance the building of a. On that property, they have a brand new house that is completely accessible for their family and is constructed to their exact requirements. They could remain on the land that was their ancestral home and still have their own area. The role of the other siblings is point 4. The proposal clearly stated that Jeremy would be given a comparable but different chance to oversee a new business on the site. Maybe a new agorism company, or a move into organic farming. But that Zach would, as the one who remained, be assigned the main position of leadership. It gave Jacob a permanent, paid job as a farm laborer under Zach's supervision, acknowledging his willingness to work the land. This was more than a simple apology. This was a thorough and legally enforceable future plan. It fulfilled all of Zach's desires: respect, an obvious route to leadership, and a safe agricultural future for his kids. It went above and beyond the basic transgression of the unsuccessful sale. Zach apparently couldn't speak. He glanced at Tori, whose tears had changed from those of despair to ones of amazement and bewilderment. The room's atmosphere had entirely shifted. This was no ruse. This was not a television plot. This seems genuine. There was no denying the amount of information, the legal structure, and the offer's enormous financial magnitude. The pragmatic Chris instantly began to inquire. What are the implications for taxes? Who is this trust's executive? What are the budgets for operations? Matt has solutions for everything. He had been with financial planners and attorneys. He had considered every possibility. There was no clear decision at the end of the meeting. For the first time in years, Zach's request for time to think things through and speak with Tori quietly was not simply granted. It was open. They decided to get together once more in a week. Doesn't it seem like the makings of a beautiful fairy tale? A father's act of love and desperation heals the damaged family. His birthright is given to the son. The heritage is safe. This is the endearing tale. That would be a fantastic season 26. However, do you recall that I mentioned that there were no cameras? That wasn't totally accurate. The producer has attested that, with Matt and Chris's knowledge, 2 lone stationary cameras were concealed in the network-approved conference room. It was gambling on the network. They wanted it on tape and hoped for a breakthrough. It wasn't until the meeting was over that Zach and Tori were made aware of the cameras. And that betrayal, no matter how well-meaning, is not nearly as bad as the other secret. The secret that was kept in the chamber by Matt. His 5-year schedule and his health crisis served as the basis for the plan. That's why his offer is so sincere and desperate. However, my insider has disclosed one last heartbreaking fact. Something Matt forgot to mention. His physicians did not merely provide him with a physical ability time frame. They provided him with an alternative timeline. They found something considerably more serious. Throughout the course of his medical examination, Matt Roloff hasn't told anyone about his ambitious plan to salvage his farm and his family, which is a race against the clock. He gave Zach a 5-year plan, but it's not a realistic projection. This is the best-case situation. And he has a secret that goes beyond the farm that he is keeping from them and the rest of the world. It has the potential to turn this significant reconciliation into a complete catastrophe. What is that secret, and what effect will it have on Jeremy's dramatic and inevitable comeback? To the talks? All of it will be revealed in Part 2. The largest cover-up in Little People, Big World history was revealed in Part 1. We made public Matt's unexpected apologies, the secret Roloff summit, and his amazing promise to save the farm and his family by putting everything in a trust for his grandchildren and designating Zach as the heir presumptive. However, we left you with a question that alters everything, leaving you on a cliff. What terrible secret is Matt Roloff actually concealing? The descent on the farm was the impetus. He told his family the account of the 5-year physical time frame, but it wasn't the complete story. We told the truth tonight. And let me tell you, this fact changed Matt's every move from being a business plan to a last-ditch effort to keep the light from going out. The complete diagnosis Matt obtained from his team of physicians has been validated by my source, the producer who has jeopardized their job to make this story public. Furthermore, it is far more destructive than deteriorating joints. While, during the thorough assessments after his fall, medical professionals observed mild but concerning cognitive symptoms. He wrote off a little trembling in his hands as weariness. He'd kept his moments of bewilderment from Caryn, and he'd choked up to tension by having trouble finding the right words. The results of a series of neurological examinations and brain imaging provided a diagnosis that explained everything, including his rapidly worsening physical condition. Early-onset Lewy body dementia has been identified as Matt Roloff's condition. For individuals who, I have no idea, but LBD is a harsh and progressive illness. It targets both the body and the psyche at the same time. Its symptoms are similar to those of Alzheimer's disease, which causes memory loss and cognitive decline, and Parkinson's disease, which affects motor function. He was given more than a 5-year deadline by the doctors to be physically capable of managing the farm. From the time of diagnosis, they estimated that he would live for 5 to 8 years. The ticking clock is this. Matt's secret is this. He's not merely attempting to preserve his legacy. He's in a mobility aid. He's attempting to get it before he forgets the names of his kids. Before the man who constructed the farm is gone and only a shell remains, he is attempting to hand over the torch. His desire to sacrifice all. His desperate gesture. It was more than regret. It has to do with atonement. A last conscious action to mend what he had damaged while he was still able to. Let's return to that hotel room now. The meeting comes to an end. Tori and Zach are completely taken aback by the offer. A glimmer of optimism appears. They decide to give it a week to reflect. For a brief moment, it appears as though a miracle is possible as they go. However, the first betrayal follows. My informant claims that Chris Merrick was really disturbed by the covert cameras. He believed that went against the meeting spirit. He took a car to Battleground, Washington, to visit Zach and Tori that evening. He admitted it. For the broadcast, he informed them, the entire conference had been surreptitiously recorded. It was an explosive reaction. Tori was furious. For her, it demonstrated that family was never the issue. It had to do with TLC content. It was a show. Zach was in excruciating pain. He was furious. His greatest emotional suffering seemed to have been utilized as a prop by his father. He perceived his father's tears as a staged moment for the camera rather than as real. He gave Matt a call. According to what I was told, the conversation was vicious. "You set me up," shouted Zach. "You humiliated me and my wife on camera without our consent. The deal is off. We're done for good this time." He ended the conversation and everything. Plan, all prospect of rapprochement had died. When the Roloff Legacy Trust arrived, it was already dead. This show has been broadcasting for 20 years because of its unadulterated backstabbing drama. It is the quintessential paradox of reality TV. A beautiful reconciliation is ruined by a filming act that was intended to document it. Please take a moment to hit the like button and ensure that you are subscribed if you are as enthralled with this incredible turn of events as I am. Your assistance is what permits us to continue searching for these undiscovered facts. You won't want to miss the next step in this. Matt was devastated since Zach wouldn't even talk to him and the business was dead. The largest gesture he had ever made had exploded in his face. He still had one more card to play though. The reality. The whole truth. At this point, Amy Roloff emerges as the narrative protagonist. In complete desperation, Matt dialed Amy. He filled her in on everything, even the LBD and the cameras. Diagnosis. The one person who has known him the longest, his ex-wife, was the one to whom he revealed his soul. My informant told me that Amy was deeply shaken. This went beyond all of the resentment from the divorce and the little disputes over the land. This has to do with her children's father confronting his own mortality. She was aware of her obligations. She took a car to the home of Zach and Tori. This time, there were no cameras. A mother conversing with her son and daughter-in-law was all that was happening. She took a seat with them and told them the whole tale. She described Matt's diagnosis, the actual timetable, and the dread in his voice to them. She said, "This isn't about the farm anymore, Zach. This is about your father's last wish. He knows he messed up. He is trying in the only way he knows how to make it right before his time runs out. The cameras made a mistake. His offer was genuine, yet it was an error. He truly apologized. Don't let pride make you regret not taking this chance, please." That discussion altered the dynamic. Even though the rage against Matt was still present, It was now overshadowed by a deep sadness and a startling realization. They consented to another meeting, but only on the proviso that there be no more secrets and that everyone attend. This leads us to the next important stage, which is Audrey and Jeremy's inclusion. They had been in the dark all the way up to this point. They were unaware of the legacy offer or the covert conference, but they were aware that Zach and Tori had quit the show. They believed that the farm's future was still an unpleasant, unsolved problem. Matt was aware that he couldn't repeat his error. Jeremy had to hear it from him. He asked Audrey and Jeremy to a private supper at the property. He outlined the identical tale he told Amy there. He told Zach about his diagnosis and the legacy trust plan he had presented to him. It was a complicated reaction. The news about his father's condition clearly devastated Jeremy. However, years of feeling ignored were entwined with that heartbreak. In line with my Audrey, who is typically practical and passionately protective of her husband, was even more straightforward when Jeremy asked, "Why, Zach? Why was he the first one you went to? Why was he the one offered the presidency?" She recognized the plan's shortcomings right away. "We adore Zach, but Jeremy has spent years creating his own businesses, penning best-selling books, and overseeing budgets. Matt," she allegedly remarked, "you are giving the keys to a multi-million-dollar company to someone who has never managed a business. Believe that he should play a co-equal role in this to safeguard the trust, to safeguard the legacy?" Matt was now in a trap that he had set for himself. In his haste to mend the wound with Zach, he had unwittingly set his sons against one another once more, but they all agreed that the discussion had to go on. A's second summit was set for the farm in the old wedding barn, a symbolic setting that represented fresh starts, and this time, all 8 of them. The scene is set for part 3, where the entire Roloff family gathers in the barn. The atmosphere is heavy with grief, suspicion, and a fragile, desperate hope. Matt's secret is out, and everyone knows what's at stake. Matt starts to speak, ready to represent his legacy trust offer to the entire family, hoping that everyone will find out. And this time, the TLC cameras were there with everyone's full knowledge. Jeremy looks at Zach and says, "Dad, I've heard your plan," his voice echoing slightly in the large barn. "And I respect what you're trying to do, but with everything we know now, it's not good enough," Jeremy remarks, stopping him before he can finish his first sentence with a hand. "It is very dangerous." He reaches down next to his chair and pulls his. The fight for the soul of Roloff Farms has just begun. It's no longer father versus son, but brother versus brother. In part 2, we discovered the tragic secret. Jeremy slides his own folder, a bright orange one that stands in stark contrast to Matt's plain manila one, onto the center of the table. "I have a counter-proposal," Jeremy tells the stunned audience. "A way to truly protect this family and this farm. It's a co-presidency, a partnership, but it comes with conditions that I don't think Zach will like." We witnessed a family on the verge of reconciliation only to have their story ripped apart by the process of filming it again, but a mother's plea brought them back to the table, this time with everyone present, and just when it appeared that a fragile peace was possible, the entire dynamic changed. The fight was no longer about the past, but now about the future. We concluded with Jeremy Roloff, the prodigal son. We will open that orange folder tonight to reveal the shocking conditions of Jeremy's plan, the explosive reaction from Zach and Tori, and the impossible decision Matt Roloff must make between his 2 sons. The scene is the wedding barn, and all 8 important players are present. The air is so thick with history and unspoken resentment that you could cut it with a knife. Son, stopping the proceedings and presenting his own plan, his own vision for the farm, a counter-proposal. The producer, who had a front-row seat to the entire confrontation from the control room, sits on the table. "Dad," he said, looking at Matt with a mixture of confidence that no one had seen from him in years. This was not the aimless young man who left the show. Rather, he was a businessman, a brand builder, and a man who thought he had the only workable solution. A business? "This is our home, Jeremy. This is our childhood. It must be both, or it will be neither." Jeremy shot back without missing a beat. "Your diagnosis changes the timeline. We don't have 5 years to apprentice. We need a functioning, profitable, and stable leadership team in place now. Your plan to make Zach the sole president is based on emotion, not on business. And this farm, for the sake of the grandchildren's trust, must be a business first. Zach snapped. A business? Here are the explosive key points of the Roloff brothers' co-presidential plan as explained by my source. Jeremy proposed a dual leadership structure, with Zach and Jeremy serving as co-presidents of Roloff Farms and having equal votes on all major decisions. The catch is that Jeremy's plan established two separate divisions. Zach's primary domain would be the agricultural division, which would include pumpkin season and farming operations, and Zach's primary domain would be business development. Jeremy would be in charge of division, marketing, brand partnerships, new ventures, short-term rentals, and digital outreach. All significant financial decisions would need unanimous approval. The second point was the sweat equity clause, which was the most contentious because Jeremy maintained that a simple 50-50 split of the future profits wasn't fair because he and Audrey had spent years creating their own successful businesses and brand while Zach had been working on the farm payroll. He suggested a buy-in. Although the land would be in the trust, the brothers would own the operating company of Roloff Farms, and Jeremy and Audrey would contribute $500,000 of their own funds to start the business. Zach would contribute his sweat equity in cash, but it would only be worth 25% of the business at first. He could earn up to 5% over 10 years if he met certain strict performance criteria for the agricultural division. In other words, Jeremy wanted to be the business's majority owner from the beginning. Point 3. Audrey's lifestyle mandate. Audrey, who would be the unpaid head of marketing, had effective veto power over the farm's branding because Jeremy's plan required that the farm's public image be consistent, which included a morality and lifestyle clause heavily influenced by Audrey, requiring all public-facing farm activities and social media to align with their beating 50% brand values. This was a blatant attempt to reshape the farm's image in their own image. Point 4. A decisive tiebreaker. What happens if the brothers impasse? Jeremy's plan called for a 3-person advisory board to break any connections, with one member chosen by Zach, one by Jeremy, and a third impartial party. Jeremy chose Chris Morrick for that important neutral position, which was a brilliant strategic move because everyone trusts Chris. However, it also placed a great deal of pressure on Amy's husband to be the final arbiter of the farm's destiny, which caused a raging reaction in the barn. Tori was the first. A buy-in, she said, her voice shaking with anger. After everything Zach has given to this place, his loyalty, his health, his entire life, you want us to earn our way into our own family? This is the most insulting thing I have ever heard. Zach was white-hot with rage and got up, shaking his chair back slightly. So, I get to do the back-breaking work, the actual farming. While you and Audrey sit in an office and dictate our brand values, you want to be the boss of me on my own land, the land Dad just offered me. Definitely not. Audrey gently replied. Zach, we're not attempting to take over. We are working to save the company, which you have never had to manage. We must respect our own money, and we are risking $500,000. The dispute turned into a vicious, emotional brawl. Years of silent animosity were brewing. Zach claimed that Jeremy had left the family for fame and money only to return to retake the throne. Zach, according to Jeremy, has no goals other than to survive. In the shadow of their father. Happy to lend a helping hand without any practical business sense. It was a bad dream. There was total commotion as Amy sobbed and begged them to stop. Caryn attempted to interrupt, but Tori interrupted, saying, You have no say here, Caryn. Matt Roloff sat quietly at the head of the table the entire time, his face a mask of deep sorrow. This was the realization of his biggest nightmare. A civil war had been sparked by his desire to unite his family. He observed his son's tears. Split up over a legacy Dad was attempting to leave them. At the same time, his own mental clock was running out. The season's emotional center is this particular moment. A crucible is what it is. Please click the like button and make sure you're subscribed if you're feeling the impact of this family's sorrow and are interested in what happens next. The final pivotal moment in this story is coming up, and you must be present. The hosts' yelling match lasted for about an hour. Chris Marks finally rose, and his steady, quiet voice broke through the commotion. He said the words, "Enough," with such authority that everyone fell silent. Take a look at yourself. Observe your actions toward your parents. Do you want your kids to witness this? Is this a legacy? Then he looked at Matt. This isn't working, Matt. As long as this animosity persists, neither strategy will succeed. You are unable to decide between them. It will permanently shatter this family. Matt's eyes were hollow as he looked up. He was aware. Chris was correct. He couldn't turn Jeremy off by going with Zach's idea. He couldn't betray Zach by going with Jeremy's idea. He was confined. It was all dust, the co-presidency, the legacy trust. He stood up painfully and slowly. Everyone was watching him. He moved to the middle of the room and stood between his two boys, who were now seated in silence and without glancing at one another. Matt remarked, "You're right, Chris," in an emotionally strained voice. "I am unable to decide." He turned to face Zach. "I am unable to negate your devotion." Jeremy caught his eye and he said, "I can't ignore your ambition." In the monument he had constructed, he gazed about at his family, all of them broken and fighting. He answered, "I'm not going to." He then made a choice that nobody in that barn, including his family and the producers, saw coming. It was an act of improvisation, pure, urgent, and horrifying. When Matt said, "The offers are off the table," he breathed deeply, both of them. "This can only be resolved in one way." He glanced back and forth between his sons and said, "Here's the new deal. We are going to have a contest." "A contest?" The room went silent, but Matt's voice grew stronger as he said, "This coming pumpkin season, we'll be divided. Literally, I'm drawing a line down the middle of the pumpkin patch. Zach, you get the west side. Jeremy, you get the east side." The identical fixed budget will be allocated to each of them, and they will be in charge of their own attractions, marketing, and employees for their respective portions of the farm. At the end of the 31 days in October, Matt stated, his voice falling into a deadly serious tone, "We will track attendance, customer satisfaction surveys, and social media engagement. The son who wins pumpkin season wins the farm. They get to be president. They get to execute their plan. The other walks away." He paused, allowing the insane to continue. A father's love has turned into a gladiatorial fight, and for the past 3 episodes, we've been on an incredible journey behind the curtain of Little People, Big World, exposing the secrets, the lies, and the desperate hidden truths that have driven this family to the edge. We've seen a father's terminal diagnosis, a son's rage, and a brother's ambition collide. Let the gamble sink in. "It's Roloff versus Roloff," Matt declared. "The winner takes everything." Tonight, in our final installment, we take you inside that contest. Roloff versus Roloff, Zach versus Jeremy. The winner of pumpkin season would win control of the entire farm. The loser would walk away. It all culminated in one impossible moment in the wedding barn, where Matt Roloff, unable to choose between his warring sons, abdicated his throne, and turned the fate of his legacy into a public spectacle. In the weeks leading up to October, the show was at its most tense. The farm was literally divided, with 2 separate entrances built and a line of hay bales placed down the center of the main pumpkin field. It was a high-stakes pumpkin season in Roloff history, and we will finally answer the question that has been looming over this family for 10 years. Who is the rightful heir to Roloff Farms? The answer will surprise you. Zach's strategy was based on 3 pillars. Family. First, he and Tori made themselves the main attraction, spending every day in the field with Jackson, Leia, and Josiah, posing for thousands of photos, conducting in-person meet and greets, and creating an atmosphere that felt like the old days. Zach went all in on tradition and authenticity, branding his side Roloff Ridge and appealing to the nostalgia that longtime fans loved. His focus was on simple hands-on activities, a petting zoo, a corn maze designed by Tori, and beloved retired attractions like the Spud Gun. It was rustic, charming, and deeply personal. The underdog narrative Tori, a social media master, subtly crafted a narrative of their side being the heart of the farm, fighting against the corporate side. Her posts were full of genuine smiles, heartfelt messages, and candid photos of the kids covered in mud. Jeremy and Audrey adopted a completely different strategy, branding their website the Roloff Experience, a sophisticated, contemporary, Instagram-worthy destination, and introducing tier ticketing. A general admission ticket gained you access to their side, but a VIP pass granted you access to a private lounge with gourmet snacks, artisanal cider, and a chance to meet and greet with Jeremy and Audrey. Their carefully manicured aesthetics were evident in every inch of their site. The branding was consistent from the coffee cups to the staff uniforms. Influencer marketing. Audrey used her extensive online network to invite lifestyle bloggers and influencers for a pre-opening weekend, creating a great deal of online buzz. They constructed a huge, exquisitely decorated harvest pavilion, hired professional photographers to take pictures, and hired a local artist to create beautiful photo backdrops. Their marketing was sleek, professional, and aimed at a younger. Matt and Caryn watched from a distance, watching the competition unfold with a mixture of pride and horror. The tension was evident. The brothers, who had once been inseparable, didn't speak. They worked on opposite sides of the hay bale wall, communicating only through text messages about shared resources like electricity and water. Amy and Chris were caught in the middle, trying to spend equal time on both sides, their faces etched with stress. This battle for the farm was more than just a ratings stunt. It was a real philosophical clash. And if you think this family story deserves to be told with this level of depth, please one last time show your support by hitting that like button and making sure you are subscribed. The stress of the contest was speeding up his symptoms, and there were multiple moments captured on camera where he appeared confused or unsteady. This final reveal is the culmination of Halloween, the last day of October, arrives. The competition is over. The gates are closed. That evening, the family gets together in the wedding barn for the final time. The atmosphere is one of impartiality, with the results in a sealed envelope held by Chris Merrick, the designated master of ceremonies, standing in front of the family. Zach and Tori are on one side of the room, while Jeremy and Audrey are on the other. They appear emotionally spent and exhausted. Exhausted. Chris opens the envelope. "I have the final results," he says in a heavy voice, "and I'm going to break it down by the 3 metrics Matt requested. Metric 1, customer satisfaction and social media engagement," Chris looks up, "was a landslide. The authenticity, the personal touch. The winner is Zach and Tori," he says, with a small sad smile on Tori's face and Zach remaining stoic. Metric 2, total attendance. Chris inhales deeply. This was much closer. It was tied, 1 metric each, and it came down to the final number, gross profit, the ultimate measure of business success. Chris stares at the paper for a long time. No one breathes. "After all expenses," he says, his voice barely a whisper. "The winner of the profit metric. The contest winner is Jeremy and Audrey. Versus the modern experience brought in different crowds, but by a margin of just under 7%. Jeremy nods slowly, a flicker of validation in his eyes. "Hang in the air." The Roloff experience between Jeremy and Audrey had produced 22% more profit than Zach's traditional Roloff Ridge. The VIP passes and contemporary marketing had been successful. Jeremy had won in accordance with the rules and was now the new president of Roloff Farms. Audrey places a hand on Jeremy's arm with a relieved expression on her face. Jeremy looks somber rather than triumphant as he looks at his brother. Zach's face is completely emotionless. Tori, on the other hand, bursts into tears, burying. The camera hangs on the empty doorway, then on Amy's heartbroken face. Zach's calm is finally broken by the sight of his wife's destruction. He puts an arm around her, pulls her close, and glares across the room at his brother, his eyes full of a lifetime of pain and betrayal. He then helps Tori to her feet, and without saying a word to anyone, they turn and walk out of the barn, out of the shot, and seemingly out of the family forever. My source, the producer, has confirmed that there is one more scene, filmed weeks later. A scene so powerful it might just change everything again. It takes place on the front porch of Matt's almost finished dream house, and it's just Jeremy and Matt. Jeremy looks troubled. "Dad, I won," Jeremy says. "But I lost my brother." Deplorable hollow victory. This is where the show wants to end the season. A brutal, tragic cliffhanger. Jeremy wins. Zach leaves. The family is devastated. "Isn't what I wanted." Matt appears older and weaker than ever. He gives his son a weak smile and says, "I know, son. I made a terrible mistake. I turned my love for you boys into a weapon. I forced you to fight for something I should have given freely. My pride. It cost us everything." Jeremy then slides a folder across the table. The same orange folder from the first meeting. "I can't do it, Dad," Jeremy says in an emotional voice. I can't take the farm like this. I've been talking to Audrey. We've been praying on it. This isn't our path. Not like this. He opens the folder and finds his counterproposal, updated to reflect Matt's original offer. Zach is named president. The farm is in the trust for the grandchildren. Jeremy has added only one new clause, and it creates a new independent entity, the Roloff legacy. He has also crossed out his own name from the co-president title, the buyout clause, and the lifestyle mandate. Zach runs the land. I'll help protect the legacy. Audrey and I will run the foundation, which will be funded by a percentage of the farm's profits. Jeremy explains, I don't want the farm. I want to protect it. Audrey and I will run the foundation, which will be funded by a percentage of the farm's profits. Our roles will be to manage the trust, handle the long-term investments, explore brand partnerships that benefit the entire family, and make sure every grandchild's share is protected. In Battleground, the seasons, and possibly the series, final shot shows two cars pulling up to Zach and Tori's house, Matt's and Jeremy's. They get out holding the amended proposal, walk up to the front door, share a look of fragile hope, and Matt raises his hand to knock. The screen cuts to black before the door opens. And that is the sacrifice. Jeremy found a way to use his business skills not to control the farm, but to serve it. He put his brother before his ambition. It's a story of failure, forgiveness, and ultimate sacrifice. Whether Zach and Tori accept this final beautiful peace offering is the question that will define the future of the Roloff family on or off screen. Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive. LPBW update will continue to follow every development. Until we meet again, we'll see you next time.